Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are now at episode 3 of Workforce at Work. I am Shamar Heron, Executive Director of Michigan Works Southeast, and today we have not one, but 2 phenomenal guests joining us. First, I'd like to introduce Bill Rayl, CEO and President of the Jackson Area Manufacturers Association. Good afternoon, Bill. How you doing?
Pretty good, Shamar. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. I'd also like to introduce Tom Kelly, who is it President and CEO?
Yeah, 2 hats, I guess, apparently.
Oh, boy. So you got double the work to do. Tom Kelly, President and CEO of Automation Alley. Thanks for joining me, Tom.
Thanks, Shamar. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's all my pleasure. On this lovely fall day, we're going to talk about Industry 4.0. And every time I ask, do you know what Industry 4.0 is? Have you ever heard of it? I usually get the sideways look. And so maybe 1 out of 50, maybe even 100 people have even heard of the term. And then they say, isn't that in the future? And I say, no, it is not. It is right now. So buckle up, folks. We're going to have a fantastic conversation. We have 2 of the industry's experts in this space. Both coming from slightly different places, but renowned for their work in the world of Industry 4.0. Again, thanks for joining us on Workforce at Work. I'm Shamar, your host, and I'm going to start with Tom. Tom, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you're at?
Sure. I'll try to be very brief. So I came out of school as an electrical engineer, but never did much work in engineering. I went into sales engineering, convinced other engineers to buy stuff. And it was all around factory automation, Industry 3.0, back in the 80s. And so, fast forward to today, and through this automation background that I had, and then I went in and did a series of startups in the software side of the world. And what it gave me was a very unique perspective in how physical meets digital. So if you think about the physical world I lived in with factories and automation and robotics and sensors and all the physical things that make manufacturing go. And then you marry that with software and the ability to move very quickly and iterate incredibly fast and agile and the things we talk about. And now you fast forward to today with Industry 4.0. That's exactly what Industry 4.0 is. It's the marriage of the physical with the digital, and it creates a step change in efficiency and effectiveness, much as we experienced through the other industrial revolution. And so how I got to this role at Automation Alley was a little of this, a little of that, if you put it together. And I think Automation Alley was a perfect fit for me. It's sort of like I was building my career to be able to help. And I'm hoping that I can be helpful as we try to tell the story to all of our community members that we need to move fast in terms of what we're doing.
Great summation. Great. Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I run the Jackson Area Manufacturers Association, but I'm not a manufacturer, and I have very little, if any, manufacturing background. The closest I come is my dad was a carpenter millwright for General Motors. That's it. That's my manufacturing background. I'm a strategic partnering sort of guy, communications. In college, I was a dual major in it's been so long ago now, English language and literature, with a computer science minor and a math minor. A bit of a weird egg. A lot of IT background, computers background, membership organization background. Again, it's an eclectic sort of mix. And ultimately, everything that I've done over the years, most of the jobs have been taken over by technology. From proofreader, I was a professional proofreader. The list kind of goes on and on and on. And all of those jobs have been pretty much taken over by either robots or software. I was a computer programmer for a little while. So there's a whole bunch of weird background that really comes together for running an association like JAMA. So kind of like Tom, all of those pieces and parts, you look back on the journey, and all of that stuff has come together into kind of a perfect mix of things to make me successful in what I'm doing today.
All the world's coming together at once. I'm going to let my wife know there's another English literature grad out here doing something about as far away from English and lit as possible. So, but those are skills you always need, right? So when I talk to young people, you need to be able to write well. You need to be able to read for comprehension. We won't get into all of those soft skills today. I'm excited about the technological world today. So thanks for the background. I see you all with your varied experience are going to allow for a rich conversation. So I'm excited about it. And so one of the ways that I wanted to sort of kick this conversation around Industry 4.0 off is, if you had to explain to a fourth grader, what is Industry 4.0? Bill, how would you do it?
Well, you put it in the context of the whole process, Industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, what does that mean, right? Because Industry 4.0 isn't just standalone. And so you go back to, when industry was starting up and you were getting, machines, if you will, to start doing work. I'll give you an example because it's easier to do it by example in some respects. So sewing and creating clothes and that sort of stuff, right? People used to knit and make their own, you take pieces you make your own wool, you make your own, material, and then you make clothes out of it. Then you get the sewing machine, and you get the loom and that sort of stuff, and that gets you starting into Industry 1.0. Where now you've got machines that are starting to do that work that individuals were doing prior to that. And then you get into Industry 2.0 and you're looking at, adding electricity to the mix instead of it's, an old treadle sewing machine. Right. Now you've got machines that are running on power and you're getting into mass production, if you will, and the assembly line and that sort of stuff. So you're starting to do it on a mass, and instead of an individual scale, you're doing it on more of a mass scale. And then you move into Industry 3.0, and that's when computers start getting connected in, and you get automation and that sort of stuff. So Industry 4.0 is taking all of those individually disconnected computer-related machines and having them talk to each other and being controlled by larger systems. And so you start getting into what's called the Internet of Things and networking this stuff together and the cybersecurity components of it. And all of that leads to Industry 4.0. To me, that's the shortest, quickest summary that I can do from a simple perspective. There's a lot underneath that.
It's a vast world. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I was going to say, from a fourth grader's perspective, you might say Industry 4.0 is the ability for you to make anything you want and not have any background in understanding the processes and the sophisticated stuff that your parents know how to do. But you're going to grow up in a world where you're going to think it and you're going to make it and you're going to use it. And it's really going to open up your ability to be creative and to do whatever you want to do, because you're going to have computers help you. You're going to know things you want to do, and then the computer's going to help you figure out how to do it. And you're going to work alongside these computers. They may be, on your phone, which or your iPad, or they may work alongside you and be like little people like you, but they're all going to work together.
And so, a couple of the things that, or entities of 4.0 is, we've got robots, but then we have something called cobots, right? Where they work right alongside humans and help engage them in ways that we couldn't do 5, 10, 20 years ago, right? And so thinking about how technology is going to be an even greater aid to individuals moving forward, I think about the case where now, we're seeing someone lose a body part and then it's recreated for them with 3D printing. Bill, you and I were having a conversation about the interconnectivity of multiple 3D printers. So we're living in a whole new world now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Tom, I love that you said anything's possible now.
Yeah, that body part was probably created by somebody that didn't have a strong background in kinesthesiology and how everything works. They said, this is a need and I'm just going to go do it. Yep. You hear about those stories where, somebody needs a joint or a prosthetic, and it's the community hobbyist down the road that actually makes the part for them, not some big factory somewhere off that it's not visible. It's really bringing the technology down to the community level and really solving problems that way.
And they say necessity is the mother of all inventions, right? So it's just about having a need and then looking for the resources and the opportunities that are out there.
That's
So
right.
thanks for the level setting and setting the foundation for how you all see I 4.0. And folks who are listening and watching, just so you know, I'll bounce between Industry 4.0, I 4.0, 4.0. You'll hear multiple ways of expressing the same thing. It's all about, like Bill said, the Internet of Things and the interconnectivity that has happened in this new industrial revolution. So I got a question, and you guys can wrestle over or arm wrestle over who's going to answer it first. What industries have you seen the greatest penetration in Industry 4.0?
The greatest penetration?
Yep. Where do you see I 4.0 being the most prevalent right now in an industry?
Well, so obviously manufacturing is a big area, especially, I mean, it's getting into the design and into the prototyping, and now finally moving into the actual manufacturing process. I mean, and I'm coming from a manufacturing background, so I have blinders on to some extent there. I see manufacturing more than anything else. And so that's what I'm most involved with.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, manufacturing is where we focus our energy around Industry 4.0. But there's an industry that people don't think of that is very sophisticated in terms of I4O technologies and how all of it comes together, and it's agriculture. Farmers, tractors have been driving themselves. Farmers have been watching every Netflix episode ever created because they sit in their cab and the tractor is just going up and down these fields. And it knows exactly what it's doing, and it knows exactly where to put the seed, how much water exactly needs to go on that seed. They're collecting data the entire time. It's really sophisticated. And then that data is going back to Monsanto, and they're adjusting the seed genetics for the actual soil as it exists on that exact farm. If that's not I4O, then nothing is. And we're just beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible in manufacturing when you start to stitch this all together.
Yeah, and it's, again, I use the word expansive, right? It's almost like a whole universe, and we've only seen the Milky Way of it, right? There's only so much that our minds can conceive around these concepts. And I like the contrast between something very traditional like manufacturing, but something even more traditional like farming, right? And understanding that those $500,000 combines are talking to satellites, and like you said, turning on a dime, and also having all of this data that's being produced is something fantastic to see. I do a lot of driving, and I'm driving through all of these country spaces, and I just have to think about the technological booms that will continue to happen in the farming space. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Tom.
Yeah.
All right. I want to shake it up a little bit here. I want to know what has been the coolest thing you have ever seen regarding Industry 4.0. Tom, we'll kick it off with you.
You know, there's a lot you can answer around this because we've seen a lot. Both Bill and I have seen a lot. It's been a lot of cool things. But I'm going to take, when we entered this COVID crisis and we went into shutdown and we had severe shortages of PPE, and you saw manufacturers and lay people and hobbyists all step up and start making PPE on their 3D printers, face shields and swabs and masks and things that they could do. That's a great example of how Industry 4.0 technologies, when actually applied properly, allow you to pivot on a dime. They allow you to be resilient and agile and say, today I'm doing this and tomorrow I'm doing this, and I'm okay with either scenario because I'm able to pivot. When you have subtractive manufacturing in Industry 3.0, you tend to optimize a process for perfect efficiency. But if there's a hiccup, that efficiency goes to heck real fast because you're no longer optimized. The world changed on you.
Yeah.
And that's the battle that Industry 3.0 causes and why finance and Wall Street doesn't want to value or pay for companies in manufacturing. They give Tesla a $250 billion valuation and they give GM a $50 billion valuation. And the reason why they do that is they think Tesla is building to be resilient and agile and be able to pivot fast through software. And GM's tied to Industry 3.0, very capital intensive subtractive processes that may or may not pan out. So I love the fact that this COVID, as terrible of a crisis as it is, we were able to demonstrate the value of being able to pivot and being resilient and agile.
It's funny you say that. I call it the silver lining of COVID.
And there is
the fact that we got to see how resilient we are as human beings. You can't go into the schools anymore. You're going to have to virtually learn. You can't go into places without a mask. We're going to mass produce face covers. Mm-hmm. So all of the ways that human beings have been able to take what they knew as normal and really turn it on its head has been fascinating. So Bill, what about you? What's the coolest thing you've seen regarding I-4?
Yeah, the coolest thing that I've seen is actually it follows up on Tom's comments, but it's in process, and that's something that Automation Alley is working on right now. Project Diamond is amazing to me, and it really is. It encapsulates everything about Industry 4.0. It is a project where it started with PPE as the Oakland County. Saying, hey, we've got some funding. We'd like to do a project, and in a nutshell, it's putting 3D printers into multiple manufacturer facilities, connecting them up into a network where they can all talk to each other and all receive jobs for printing from a central source. In this case, for PPE, for the purposes of we have another pandemic surge. We need face shields. You hit the button, and this print job goes out to all of these printers. The printers are working for the manufacturers, and doing whatever they're doing with them. And if they've got a job going on, that job completes, and then this hot rush job comes on, and parts get printed. Then they get picked up and moved to a central location where they get assembled, and we can respond to spikes in need for PPE. Now it's not just limited to PPE. That starts to have implications for everything. Now all of a sudden, you've got job shops all over the place, right. And it becomes really scalable. Having the ability to print 300, 400, 600 plus printers. All of a sudden, it's not just I can print off a prototype and it's going to take a couple hours, right? So, and there's interesting background technology with blockchain and a whole bunch of other stuff that's in that really pulls all of this Industry 4.0 stuff together in a way that has implications for manufacturers and people like you and me. We can set up a shop and get into business doing this and supplement our income. It's not that much different than Uber and Lyft to the taxi driver or. Right? It's just amazing.
I appreciate it.
And go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say, I appreciate that because we're pretty excited about that too. And we're humbled the amount of support that we've had. And Bill and Jim have been great supporters watching what we're doing and saying, hey, we're in as soon as you get this stood up. Oakland County used their funds. But we see this as a benefit for all of Michigan. We want to create a huge competitive advantage for our manufacturers in Michigan. And there's a big chunk of them in Jackson. And we want to get everybody communicating and being able to say, look, I got an order for X parts. I'm going to feed it out on my system and get them all done in 3 days. And everybody makes a little bit of money on it. And then the favor is returned some other day. So I think, I appreciate that, Bill, very much, getting the word out of it.
Yeah. So speaking of interconnectivity, I won't say my story is cool. I'd say it's a little scary, but it speaks to artificial intelligence, maybe a little bit of machine learning. My wife and I bought a new faucet and sink. And while we're in the big box store comparing them, I left my phone in the car. I say to her, hey, take a picture of those two sinks, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't say the names of them. I just said, take a picture of those two sinks. She takes the picture. When I get home, get back to my phone and go on that site's app, what are they selling me up and down that page? Are those two sinks that my wife took a picture of on her phone? And I said, yep, we're here. We are here.
It is true. Be careful what you search for because it's going to show up on your wife's feed as an ad.
Absolutely.
My wife and I see that all the time.
Or even what you say now, right? The voice recognition and, unless your phone is completely turned off, it's always listening.
Yeah.
And I can't say to a board member, hey, Sharon, without Siri popping up on me. So, we're in a new world now, a new world.
Yeah.
So I'm going to split these questions up. So I'd like to know from you, Bill, what do you think is the biggest thing people should be concerned about with I 4.0?
Well, it really depends on what you mean by people. People in general, I think that they need to be paying attention to the skill sets necessary to be, productive in this environment, right? So, and we can get into more detail on what those skill sets are if you want. I mean, I can share just a few. I mean, some of it's as simple as problem solving, problem solving and troubleshooting skills, and there is a level of technology, but the technology changes all the time. And so you don't want to spend, 4 years figuring out a technology that's going to be obsolete in 6 months. But those base level skills and some foundational stuff, including that problem solving type of stuff, and those things are important. And they're not necessarily just soft skills, right? But the technology is important. And when you get into manufacturing, so you've got PLC controllers and sensor systems and all that sort of stuff. Those sensors are going to change over time, but the concept of taking these sensor systems and putting them onto machines to get data, and it goes up into a system that's probably artificial intelligence that's going to feed you back information. That is what we're talking about, right? And so it doesn't matter what the specific sensors are. And as we move into 5G and other, broadband sort of network functionality, where it gets increasingly easier to do full-blown enhanced and reality, then those being open to that kind of change and being able to jump onto it and to learn and to grow, those are critical skills.
And so what I think I'm hearing you say is what they should be concerned about is not keeping up, or at least not being flexible enough to be able to keep up.
Yeah, flexibility is the key.
And there are some core components to us being able to stay competitive. And number one is critical thinking. So you said troubleshooting and problem solving. When I talk to the employers who are looking for talent, they are saying we need somebody who can think critically, and we'll handle the rest. If they show up and they can think critically and they're a little inquisitive, we've got somebody we can work with. But those
not afraid of change, willing to embrace it and get in there and figure it out. Absolutely.
And not afraid of failure.
Right.
Failure isn't always a bad thing. You learn your most when you say, I probably shouldn't touch a hot stove. It means nothing when the stove is off and you can touch it all day. But the moment it warms up on you, you learn a very valuable lesson from that.
Yeah, failure is only a failure if you, A, don't learn from it, or B, it kills you.
Fair enough.
That I will give you.
Fair enough. And I think that second part, it depends on who's watching your failure happen as to.
Yeah. Other people can learn from it, but you won't.
Yeah. You can only learn that lesson once.
Yep. Hey, Tom, what's the biggest thing people should be the most excited about? Opposed to being afraid or concerned, what do people need to get fired up about I 4.0?
Well, I'll tell you what gets me fired up, Shamar, every day is I want to specifically talk about Michigan and manufacturing in Michigan. You know, from 1910 on, we had 80-year run of success where we dominated. We created the third industrial revolution, and we dominated the second, and we dominated the third. We created wealth. It was coming out our ears in the 60s, right? We were so successful. And then we globalized around the world, and Michigan got hurt very badly because it became a labor equation. And low-cost labor was everywhere. And for 20 years, we just kind of got a little smaller and a little smaller and a little sadder and a little, less bounce in our step. What Industry 4.0 does is it brings advantage back to the innovators, because it brings advantage back to those who innovate, those who move fast, those who can understand the complexity of things. And it's not a low-cost labor equation anymore. Well, guess what Michigan's really good at? We're really good at innovating. We're really good at understanding how to extract value out of the next thing. The auto companies get dinged on their quality all the time. And it's typically, if you peel the onion, it's not that they make bad cars, it's that they're pushing the envelope all the time. And those are the things that cause them grief, because they're always out on the edge, putting in new technology all the time into their vehicles. And so we're good at that. Industry 4.0 allows manufacturing to now move as fast as my brain can innovate. And if we can bring those two together, we can compete with anyone in the world, including China, including Mexico. I really think that if we embrace it, that we can be very hopeful and very enthusiastic for the next 20 years and say, look, the world's coming back to us. Software by itself is played out in Silicon Valley. Labor as the defining factor of where you do plants is played out in China and Mexico. Everything's starting to come back to, you know what matters? Moving fast and innovating. We're pretty damn good at that.
Right on, right on. And because I'm an asset-based person, Bill, I don't want to leave you out there with the what's concerning piece. Anything you want to share around what should be exciting for folks to be looking at in I4?
The empowerment feature of Industry 4.0, it's on an individual basis. I mean, it in a sense is democratizing manufacturing and democratizing the ability to design, make, and sell. So you've got opportunities there for people who embrace this to do whatever they can envision, and it lowers the bar, if you will. It doesn't take you don't have to get a PhD to do it. It helps if you have some PhDs who are involved in designing this stuff. But ultimately, it comes down to users being able to create their dreams. And so, with a little bit of application and some hard work, you can this is the new American dream.
Let me tell you, you guys are doing a great job of selling what I hope people are picking up, which is all of the possibilities. You shouldn't be afraid of this. There is an entire world out here for you to go and explore. And if there's ever been a time, whether you're an artist or an engineer, to go out and tinker, now's the time. You can buy a couple $100 device, maybe $100 device, and be able to produce in a way that had never been conceived before.
Heck, you can do it with $20 Arduinos, man.
Hey, a $20 what? See, you lost me there. We were going so well. Arduinos?
Yeah, there's Raspberry Pi, Arduinos, all of these little mini computer. So they're like little motherboards with sensor systems on them. Look it up. Just go out on Google, put in Raspberry Pi. PI, not PIE, PI.
I was going to say, you're making me hungry here, Bill. Hold on now. All right. And for the folks that are listening, go out and research this stuff. You've heard all sorts of terminologies. If you need to listen to this again and write down some of the things that you've heard, write it down. Go look. This isn't technology that's 10 years down the road. This isn't stuff that's 5 years away. This is actually old. We are coming up with new ideas. There are new technologies that are right in front of our face, just like Raspberry Pi, just like Arduinos. I learned something. Don't you worry. I wrote them down. I'll be researching them myself. We may even have a picture pop up right here or something cool to help people continue to learn. And this is the place to do it here at Workforce at Works, folks. Okay, so I got a couple more questions for each of you, and then I'm going to let you go about your day because I know you're both really busy. Tom, where is resistance coming from around I-4.0 and why?
Great question, because it's the one we work on so hard, and I know Bill works on the same question. So Industry 4.0 is, people think it's about the technology. It's about applying all this cool technology that we're inventing all the time. And Industry 4.0, I don't see it as a technology problem. And neither would Bill, and neither would anybody sort of in the know. The secret, I'll give you that little secret. It's about culture.
I'm in the club now.
You're in the club. And Shamar, it's about culture. We are afraid to fail. You guys talked about it just a little minute ago. We built a system in manufacturing where the most important driver day in and day out for the last 50 years has been leaning out your organization, making it perfectly efficient, putting systems and processes in place that allow us to be ISO 9000, or whatever number they're on. That's great if you live in a world where that process doesn't change very much. You're just trying to get a little better, little better, little better, little better. Well, that world is starting to break apart, and it's not about being a little better. It's about waking up and going, I'm on this road. Today I'm on this road. Well, what does that do? So the whole world is sort of waking up to this. We got to be more resilient and more agile. And so the resistance comes from within. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The only thing we have to fear is our own fear of change. We in Michigan, anybody in manufacturing, if you said, hey, we're going to tinker with the system every day, they darn near take you behind the barn and shoot you dead.
Yep.
You're not going to get to tinker with the system. And it gets complicated because the CFO, who you have to go sell the deal to, says, what's my return on investment? Well, I don't know till I learn. Oh, heck no. You're not getting any budget for that. You don't get to do that. When you can prove to me exactly what the payoff is for the investment you're going to make in this manufacturing facility, then I'll fund it. Well, it's a vicious circle because you never get to learn. You never get to learn. So what do? You end up just slowly, that plant becomes more and more and more commoditized until the point it just goes away. That's our risk, is that we don't understand the forces at work here and how our backs are against the wall. We got to go.
I love it, and I think you're talking to the same thing from two different ways, right? If you're stagnant in the way you think and the way you involve, and then you're stagnant in your funding, that's a double-edged sword that's coming right towards your chest, man, because you're not going to be able to function in a space and a place right now where, like we've talked about, the world is your oyster, right? You can go out and really start to think beyond the why or consider the why and really start to dive into all of these different aspects. But if you're afraid or you have someone who's always pumping the brakes on ideas and thought making, you're not going to go very far. Bill, I'll ask you the same question. Where are you seeing resistance to I-4 and why do you think that is?
So it's very much in line with Tom's comments. Small to mid-sized manufacturers in particular, I mean, it's the investment that they've made in the legacy systems that they have in place, and the reticence to take a leap and do something different, right? That's risk. And they're not weighing the risk of doing nothing against the risk of doing this, right? Jumping in on this. So you've got machine shops, right? And they're doing subtractive manufacturing, they've got all their Haas machines, et cetera, and they're cutting metal or plastic or wood or whatever they're doing. Many of them have a reticence to jump into this whole 3D printing additive manufacturing world. Some of them have been the leader, the cutting edge ones in the manufacturing world took a few of those printers or laser sintering machines that are doing it with metal and they're sticking them in their little prototyping, and they're playing around with them in these little lab spaces inside their manufacturing facility. And they're getting more and more comfortable with moving them out into actual production. But there's a whole bunch of them that are still like, that's not, I don't, I have to learn a whole new system and do a whole new thing. And I'm not comfortable with that. And so that is the biggest, risk factor or concern, if you will, is that they're not all embracing this, and not all of them are going to, but more and more of them need to in order to be successful, because you don't want to be the best buggy whip manufacturer.
And part of the problem, Bill and Shamar, is we're all about the same age, and everybody our age and older that owns the company says, oh, heck no, Tom, I'm just trying to limp into retirement. Just give me a break. I'm tired. I've been fighting the good fight for so long. I don't want to remortgage my house. Hell, I just got it paid off from 2007. Thank the Lord. Now you want me to invest again? And so I don't fault them, but by the same token, it becomes a resistance point. It's hard to get them to want, and I get it. It's hard to get them to want to engage.
And there is a generational change there. We're seeing more and more of those. The next generation of the families, when in family-owned businesses, that are moving into the roles of leadership within these companies, and they're bringing those changes with them. Yeah. Because for them, they see this is part of the future, as opposed to it's risk. This is just the way we have to do business now.
And I think the onset of the internet, going back to sort of Industry 3.0, like life, it started to reduce your level of worry around risk, right? You had a great big world in front of you that you can go and dibble and dabble in, and you can take your maps function or app and zoom in on some small country off the coast of Africa and learn about it, where before you had your encyclopedias that were static and rigid, but now you were able to, and that generational shift is what's bringing about the ability to say, you know what, I'm going to try it. It's a calculated risk. You go out, you do the research, you've got the data that says this can be supported, and you give it a shot. And if we fail, all right, we won't do that again. But if you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's right.
Yeah, right. And you don't get to see that. So this is going to be a strange analogy, but when's the last time you opened up a phone book, right? To get a number to call somebody. Right. But there was a time when people were like, I don't want to go. I'm not going to go online and look for that. I'm not going to look it up on my phone. I'm going to go get that piece of that book. And so to some respects, that's analogous to what's going on for some companies today. They're still in the phone book.
And to put it into a different format, my wife and I drove our daughters from our home to Jonesville, Louisiana to visit our 100-year-old grandmother. From there, we went and visited her children in New Orleans. From there, we went to Clearwater, Florida. From there, we went to Atlanta and got back home. It was a 12-day trip. Not once did we break out a map.
Yeah.
We plugged it into our phones, and it said for the next 6 hours, you're on I-65. So the world, we've went from paper maps, going over to AAA and getting your roll pack, to now I don't even consider, as long as my phone is charged, I can go anywhere now.
And you looked up where to stay, and you looked up the best places to eat. And in the car as you're driving, hey, here's a Yelp. Pull over, Dad. This is a great spot to eat, right? Yep, it's all there.
Yep. What are the coolest landmarks? So this technology, I know we're manufacturing sort of centric right now on this conversation, but this world goes into just about everything we do in these days. I'm talking about your RIF key fob as well, just to get into your buildings, or you slide your ID, or your credit card went from a slide to a chip. All of these different technologies that are just coming up on us, and they keep rolling.
Yep, you can watch your UPS package as it's driving around town, and you watch the truck till it comes to your house.
And I told the company, I said, I don't want the chip on my card. They said, well, you don't want to bank with us anymore because everybody's getting it. So just a couple more questions, guys, just to wrap up. And I appreciate you spending time with me here on Workforce at Work. Can you give an example where I-4 has affected you personally? I know we talked about the coolest thing you've seen, but do you have any examples, like when I talked about what happened at Home Depot, or were you somewhere and you saw a manufacturer produce something that you then were able to take and, fix your door through 3D printing or what have you? Anything you care to share? And if not, we got a couple more questions that can keep us going.
I got one. I don't know if Bill wants to go, but I got one. So at home, I have one of those big umbrellas that you open it up on a nice sunny day and it covers your, 10 foot by 8 foot area. Yep. And it had a top on it, and the wind caught it, and it broke the top off. And it was a special part. You'd have to throw it out and get a whole new umbrella. So I had a friend, and he said, hey, let me tell you, he works for Nissan. He said, let me take it into the shop. Took it into the shop. They 3D scanned it, which then went into the computer. They fixed the brake. They said, oh, well, that needs to be like that. They 3D printed they had a metal printer thing because it's Nissan, right? So they have all kinds of toys in their shop. He 3D printed an aluminum part that was 10 times stronger than the little plastic job that came with the device. Put it back in there. The thing's been good as new ever since. And who would, that all of that happened in one day. One day. And I didn't even have to know the manufacturer or the part, or I never called the manufacturer. Just like, here's the part. They scanned it, they made it. And it gives you a glimpse into the future of, people are going to have these little Star Trek replicators at home, and they're going to say, oh, my vacuum cleaner, little plastic part broke. And, the Hoovers ships down to your printer a protected IP document that makes the part, and boom, thank you. It's done in an hour.
Bill, what about fascinating, Tom? Thanks for sharing. Bill, anything from you?
Not personally, but I know somebody who had a knee replacement, and years ago you could get a knee replacement, and it was the same knee that everybody else got for a knee replacement. Now they scan the darn thing, and they print you off your own knee. And so I know somebody who's literally they had 2 knees done over the course of a few years. And the first one was done the more traditional way, and it's just like every other knee that thousands of other people got. And the other knee is their knee replaced, rebuilt, and replaced. And that they say that knee is like perfect, right? Compared to the other one, it's just amazing.
It's night and day. Oh, what a few years will do for technology. I got 2 more questions for you, Bill. I'm gonna have you kick this one off. We're getting away from the technical and we're getting more into the subjective here. If you were having a conversation with yourself 20 years ago, what would you tell yourself about the social and technological advancements that you are witnessing today?
Buckle up, man. It's going to be faster. 20 years ago, I was working for America Online, running online sites under contract. And so I was involved in technology, but from look at who knows about America Online these days, right? Some people still have AOL email addresses, and that's about it. Technology was changing fast then, and it's light speed now compared to then. Then I would have told myself, when this Tesla company comes around, put some money in that stock.
Put a couple dollars in there.
Just put $100 and you'll be fine.
Hey, I heard Roger Curtis once say, never has technology moved this slow, and never has technology moved this fast, and never will technology move this slow again. And so that is something else. Never has it moved this fast, and never will it move this slow. All in one sentence.
Yeah.
Tom, what about you 20 years ago, which I got to remind people was the year 2000.
That's true.
20 years ago was the year 2000. I got to center that in that fact that I am getting old.
Yeah. To get away from manufacturing and to bring it to just humanity in general, if if I could go back now, I would say protect your privacy as if it was gold, because that is going to be the currency with which the world trades, and you have no say in your own currency anymore.
Yep.
And it's almost like, how do people begin to regain control over their own self and their own self-worth? So, you know, it's one of those things where the cat's out of the bag, but had we been a little smarter about, you know, where this social engineering is going, we might have headed it off at the pass a little bit.
You know, I'm going to name drop here. I wanted to purchase a pair of the new Oculus VR Quest goggles. And once they told me it is automatically hooked up to your socials, and that's how they are able to commoditize and drive down the prices because they're going to be shipping off your privacy and your data, said, I think I'll go take a walk in the real reality instead of the virtual reality. It just really shook me up that they were very much out there like, yes, we're going to take your data.
Yeah.
We're going to sell it. So that was a great point. Last question of the day. And again, thank you so much for joining me here on Workforce at Work. How can we start to prepare the workforce of today and tomorrow for all things Industry 4.0? Bill, you want to kick us off?
Well, it does go back a little bit to the comments I made before. I mean, one of the things that we do at JAMA is training, right? And so we're in the process of looking at certifications for that are relevant to Industry 4.0 and changing the way we do training and what we're covering to build more of this future proofing for the workforce into the training programs that we do. So some of it does get back to that, you know, creative thinking and flexibility and stuff, and building more entrepreneurship, if you will, and innovation into the programming that we provide. And so, you know, folks need to take advantage of those opportunities where, you know, get involved in your maker spaces and your programming, coding clubs and all that sort of stuff when you're young, because all of that's relevant, and even gaming, right? You do the virtual reality stuff, get involved and engaged in that, but start looking at ways that can be leveraged into, you know, work, right?
Yep. And it's a whole new world. They say by 2040, 60% of the positions that'll be available don't exist today.
That's right.
That's
amazing. We have no clue what they're going to be.
If you would have told me 20 years ago, hey, you could make six figures managing someone's MySpace or Black Planet page, I would have laughed at you like, yeah, right. Now think about these social media directors and VPs who make a lot of money to make sure that the social content that's being put out about these companies is relevant and on point. So Tom, what about you? How can we prepare the workforce of today and tomorrow for all things I 4.0?
So, you know, you couldn't have a better guest than Bill on, because JAMA is one of the best training resources in the state, you know, I mean, so they really understand how to get people excited and into, and he's got a great community, Bill, over there in Jackson that really supports what that's doing. But from my perspective, if you look at really young kids, I think we're missing an opportunity, and we suffer from a lack of creativity in terms of how we embrace training and how we send kids through school. And I want to give you an example. So kids today play this game called Minecraft. Probably everybody has even maybe heard of it or knows exactly what I'm talking about. And Minecraft is all about just living in a world that mimics the real world. And there's, you know, you build houses and you mine for ores, and then you use those ores to turn it into different metals or different that you know, you cut the tree down and you make the axe handle. I mean, they're living in this world, and they're learning how to do all this stuff as if they were agrarians just starting out in the world, and they have to survive, and they have to, you know, plant their own vegetables and grow them. Well, they're learning how to live in this world that they've created. You would think that we would start building virtual reality training that says, I'm going to live in a plant and I'm going to make it super fun about how you actually have to smelt your own key and to get something of value in this game. And you'll have millions of kids knowing how to work in a smelting plant that they'll know more than the guys do about, hey, you can't do it that way. If you don't add that little bit of Coke, it's not going to work properly. And they'll have it all figured out, right? In the virtual world, because it's been gamified and it's been fun. So I think there's a path, and this will come eventually, and it'll probably come as those children come of age and say, you're doing it wrong. This is not, we're going to create training that is engaging and immersive and fun, and that'll come. But I'm thinking, well, and Bill and I share the same. It's like, well, why can't we do that today? Right. And we're just not there yet, right? We do it through, if you talk to a community college, you say, no, we're just now looking at online because we had to with COVID. But what we really want to do is classroom-based training where everybody sits in a row and raises their hand when they're asked a question, and we need to think
and absorbs the knowledge from
from
the front of the room.
Right.
When there's as much, and we see this with the apprentices that we do. There's as much knowledge with the guys and gals who are coming in from the shop floor. Some of them have been doing this work for years, as there is necessarily at the front of the classroom.
Absolutely.
And so it is a big deal. And when you start turning training into exploration, especially for young people, it's not necessarily about we're going to train you to learn this skill. It's an exploration process. One of the things one of the most fun projects that we ever did with kids was in our Girl Empowered program for elementary grades girls. And we gave them a piano, an upright piano, and we tore it apart with them. And then they had all these pieces and parts, and they invented musical instruments out of all those parts.
Oh, it's cool.
It was amazing what these girls came up with. But they're training, right? We were training them. They were disassembling this thing. They were using these raw materials to create something new, and there was curriculum, and we were training, but it was fun for them, and they were just engaged in exploring the possibilities. If we do that for adults as well, it's amazing.
The power of creativity, especially with our young people who haven't been told, no, you can't do that, or no, you shouldn't be thinking about that. When you just let them run, you'd be surprised with what they produce and bring back to you. So Tom Kelly of Automation Alley, thank you. Bill Rayl of the Jackson Area Manufacturers Association, also known as JAMA, thank you for joining me on Workforce at Work. I want to say I appreciate your time. I'm Shamar Heron of Michigan Work Southeast, and I appreciate everyone joining us. Anything else you fellas want to say before we jump off the line?
Don't fear the future, man. Don't fear the future.
There it is. Take care, fellas. Have a great day, gentlemen.
See you later.
And thank you again.